The stars over the outer rim were quiet that night. Traders moved slowly through the dark lanes of space, their engines humming, their minds on profit and safety. Space was calm. It had been calm for years. No one expected anything to change. But then, a shadow appeared. It was first noticed by a small mining station drifting near the edge of the galactic map. A young operator named Tira stared at her scanner, confused. A large shape was moving into the system. It was not a planet, not a moon, not an asteroid. It was far too smooth, far too straight in its edges. The reading said it was more than 50 kilometers long. Tira tried to hail it on open channels. No answer. She switched frequencies, tried again. Still nothing. At first she thought her equipment was broken. She tapped the screen, adjusted the calibration, but the shadow grew larger. Then her eyes widened. Stars behind the object began to disappear, blocked out completely as it drifted forward. She whispered into the com, calling her supervisor. The mining station went on alert. More scanners locked onto the unknown mass. The data returned was clear to clear. A tag appeared on the display, identified humanity. No one spoke for several seconds. Humanity had been gone for over 200 years. During the War of Extinction, they had fought against half the galaxy and vanished afterward, leaving nothing but wreckage and fear in their wake. Most people thought they had been wiped out. Others believed they had fled to another galaxy. And now, something was back. The mining station reported the sighting to the Galactic Patrol. Within minutes, messages were flashing through military networks, coded in red. Orders came down from high command. Observe only, do not engage. No one was foolish enough to provoke humans. On the bridge of the Galactic Patrol cruiser Vigilance, Captain Run leaned over the sensor table. Magnify. The holographic display grew, revealing a dark, massive warship. It had no running lights. Its surface was a maze of black armor and strange shifting panels that seemed to swallow starlight. The size of it made even the most seasoned officers feel small. Ron's voice was low. That's a supercarrier. Bigger than anything we've ever built. Still, there were no transmissions from it. No greetings, no demands, no signs of life, only silence. The supercarrier continued on a slow, steady path toward the central trade lanes. Civilian traffic was already diverting away, afraid to pass within visual range. Rumors began spreading. Through spacers and traders, the humans had returned, and something terrible was about to happen. By the third day, the galaxy's leaders were in emergency meetings. Some wanted to prepare for war. Others argued that war would be suicide. Truth was, no one understood what the humans wanted. In the refugee sectors of the Outer Rim, whispers grew. The oppressed and enslaved remembered old stories how humans had fought for their allies, how they had burned empires to the ground when provoked. Some dared to hope. Others were certain that hope was a mistake. And then the ship stopped. It hung in deep space, far from any planet or star. It did not move. It did not fire. It simply sat there, a black mountain against the stars. From its belly, hundreds of smaller ships emerged. They were all shapes and sizes, none matching any known design. They spread out like silent hunters, vanishing into hyperspace one by one. Patrol ships tried to follow. They failed. The human craft moved in ways that made no sense, vanishing from sensors, reappearing light years away in seconds. No one knew where they were going in the dark halls of the Dominion's High Council. Their leader, Lord Vexer, slammed a metal fist onto the table. They must be destroyed before they act. If they are truly human, we cannot wait. But even the Dominion's warlords hesitated. The last time the humans had been provoked, they had not simply won, they had erased fleets from existence, leaving nothing but silence in the void. On the fourth day, the galaxy received an answer. Warning. Every comm channel lit up at once. Civilian radios, military secure lines, even ancient unused frequencies, all carried the same voice. It was deep, old, and full of weight. We heard your cry for help. There was no signature, no further message. The channels went dead. On the Vigilance, Captain Run felt the hair rise on the back of his neck. He remembered his grandfathers. Stories how humans never arrived without reason, how they never fought without purpose. If they were here now, it meant something, somewhere, had gone terribly wrong. All across the galaxy, the silence after that message felt heavy, tire. Worlds paused their work. Traders stopped their ships in mid-flight. Even the most hardened criminals stayed off the channels. Everyone waited for the next transmission, the next move, in a hidden bunker far from the trade lanes. An alien resistance leader stared at the old distress beacon she had sent weeks ago. The humans had heard it. She didn't know if that was a blessing or a curse. In the outer rim, Tira stood again at her scanner. The massive ship was still there, cold and still as a dead star, but she could feel it. Whatever it was here to do, it had already begun. And no one in the galaxy would be able to stop it. The archivist Kaler had lived most of his life in quiet study. His home was deep inside the great library of Relas, where the air smelled of dust and ancient paper. He had read countless histories, wars, treaties, fallen empires. There was one set of records he was forbidden to open. The human archives. That night, Kaler broke the rules. The moment the giant human supercarrier appeared on every news channel, he knew the galaxy's memory of them would not be enough. He needed to see for himself why everyone feared their return. The archive room was dark, lit only by the glow of his console. He entered the key sequence, and the sealed files unlocked with a quiet chime. Old footage began to play. The first image was of a battlefield and spaceships burning, wreckage drifting. A single human warship, smaller than the supercarrier, now in the news, moved through enemy lines. The footage zoomed in on its weapons, bursts of light, silent but unstoppable. Ripping through cruisers in seconds, Kaler's voice trembled as he whispered to himself, they were not conquerors, they were something worse. The more he watched, the more the truth became clear. Humans did not fight for territory. They fought like predators protecting their own. When attacked, they struck back with overwhelming force, ending wars in days instead of years. And when the war was over, they simply left. The recording showed something else: human ground forces. Soldiers in black armor, moving faster than the eye could follow, each one carrying weapons heavier than 2 alien soldiers could lift. Their faces were hidden, but their actions were precise. They did not waste bullets. They did not waste words. Then came the last battle in the archive. An alien fleet of thousands surrounded a human colony ship. The humans sent one message: release them. The enemy refused. The human response was not an attack, it was an erasure. Every enemy ship vanished from sensors within minutes. There were no explosions, no wreckage, just... Kaler shut the console, his hands shaking. The footage was too much. If this supercarrier was here now, the galaxy was in danger, or salvation, depending on where you stood. Far away, the galaxy's rulers met again in hidden council chambers. On the central world of the trade union, Chancellor Vorth spoke with urgency. We must open communication before they decide our fate. But not all agreed. The Iron Dominion, the largest military empire in the galaxy, laughed at the idea. Their warlord, Lord Vexer, slammed his claws against the table. If they attack, we will crush them like the insects they are. A smaller voice spoke from the corner, nervous ambassador from the free colonies. You don't understand, you cannot crush humans. You can only survive them if they allow it. Meanwhile, the supercarrier had not moved from its position. Civilian ships were warned too. Keep away, but one vessel ignored the orders. It was a small envoy craft, painted in the bright gold colors of the Neutral Systems Alliance. It carried diplomats trained to speak to any species. The envoy approached the massive ship slowly. Its pilot sent a formal greeting, then a request. For parley? No reply. He tried again, switching languages. Still nothing. Inside the envoy's cockpit, the crew waited in tense silence. The black walls of the supercarrier filled their view. No movement. No lights. Then, suddenly, their sensors failed. Stars outside disappeared. The ship's lights flickered once and everything went dark. Hours later, the neutral systems reported the envoy missing. No wreckage was found. Number distress signal. It was as if the crew had never existed. News of the disappearance spread quickly. On the streets of major trade worlds, fear grew. Some people hid indoors, others gathered in bars and meeting halls, arguing about the humans' intentions. Were they here for revenge, for justice, or for something no one could imagine? In the refugee camps of the Outer Rim, a different kind of rumor spread. They said the humans were here because someone had called them, that somewhere, someone had sent a message across the stars, asking for help. And the humans had answered. By the end of the week, every corner of the galaxy was watching the Supercarrier. Some watched in terror, others in hope. The silence was more frightening than any open threat. And then the silence broke. Without warning, the humans spoke again. Their voice came from every speaker, every comm device, even personal earpieces. No encryption could block it. No system could shut it out. The deep voice was calm, steady, and cold. Your enemies will fall. Stand by. The message ended, leaving only static. On the Dominion's capital world, Lord Vexor grinned. Good, he said to his generals. If they want war, they will have it. God. In a hidden cave on a slave world, a young alien rebel heard the message and smiled for the first time in years. They're coming, she whispered to her brother. Back in the great library, Kaler closed his eyes. He had seen the past, he understood the present, and he feared the future the humans had chosen. Their side. Whatever happened next, the galaxy would never be the same again. Far beyond the trade lanes, in the cold emptiness of deep space, the Supercarrier finally moved. For days it had remained motionless, a silent mountain in the dark. Now, the black giant turned slowly, like a predator picking its path. High-powered. Telescopes from a dozen worlds tracked it. What they saw made even the most hardened admirals go pale. Massive gates on the Supercarrier's hull began to open, one after another, each the size of a city. From the darkness inside, warships emerged. They were unlike anything in the galaxy's known fleets, sharp, sleek, and painted in a black that seemed to drink the light. They had no visible engines, yet they moved with smooth, deadly grace. No running lights, no signal beacons, just silent shadows slipping into the void. The ships spread out in formation, then broke away in groups. Some jumped to hyperspace immediately, vanishing without a trace. Others simply faded out, their images, dissolving from every camera and scanner. It was as if they had never been there. In the Dominion's war room, generals argued loudly over maps of the galaxy. They're scouting our systems, one officer said. They'll be in Dominion. Space within days. Lord Vexor slammed a clawed fist on the table. Let them come. We will crush them before they reach our worlds. But Admiral Kerr, older and wiser, shook his head. You cannot crush shadows, my lord. They are not here to fight us head-on. They are here to choose their prey. Elsewhere, in the free colonies, people whispered about the second human message. Your enemies will fall. Stand by. For some, the words meant fear. For others, they meant hope. On a backwater mining moon, a small group of rebels huddled in a dark storage room. They'd been fighting the Dominion for years, always losing ground. Now, one of them, a scarred woman named Jera, held a strange device in her hands. It was a small cube, smooth and black. It had arrived 2 hours earlier, dropped from the sky by an unmarked craft. When Jara touched the cube, unfolded like liquid metal, projecting a holographic map of their planet. Red marks showed every Dominion outpost. Then, without warning, new blue symbols appeared, dozens of them each, marked with a strange human symbol. They're coming here, Jara whispered. They know where every enemy base is. In the days that followed, strange events began to spread across the galaxy. Dominion patrols went missing. Pirate strongholds exploded in the night with no warning. Entire mercenary fleets that once hunted refugees vanished without a single distress signal. One incident shook the galaxy more than any other. On the outer edge of Dominion territory, a massive slave transport was attacked. Witnesses said they saw nothing at first. I leave the blackness of space. Then, a ripple of light, and suddenly dozens of human ships were there, surrounding the transport. The attack lasted less than 2 minutes. When it was over, the Dominion ship was gone, and in its place were thousands of escape pods, each carrying freed slaves. The human ships didn't stay to take credit. They simply vanished again. The news spread faster than any fleet could travel. To the oppressed, it was a spark of hope. To the powerful, it was a warning. In the great library of Relas, Kaler continued his research. Every new report matched the old records he had studied. This was how humans fought silently, precisely, without mercy for their enemies, and without hesitation for those they chose to protect. He began to understand why the galaxy feared them, and why some prayed for their return in a quiet council. Room on the neutral world of Delcar. A meeting took place in secret. A group of alien leaders, too small to stand against the Dominion, but too proud to submit, debated their next move. "They are dangerous," one elder said. "If we ally with them and they lose, the Dominion will destroy us." "They will not lose," another replied. "I have seen what they can do, and I have received a message from them." The others stared at him. "A message?" The elder nodded and placed a small device on the table. It was old, very old, yet it still worked. He pressed a button, and a voice filled the room. "Prepare. Your people, we are coming." The voice was human. That night, the leaders made their choice. They would stand with the humans. Back in deep space, the Supercarrier remained in position, but its fleet was everywhere at once. Dominion officers tried to predict their next moves, but every guess failed. The humans were unpredictable. Unpredictability was the one thing the Dominion could not control. On the 4th day after the fleet's release, the galaxy's networks lit up again. But this time, it was not a public broadcast. The message was sent only to a few select resistance leaders scattered across many worlds. The words were simple: hold your ground. The storm begins soon, and then the channels went dark again. In the quiet before the coming storm, traders, soldiers, and civilians all shared the same uneasy feeling. Something was moving in the dark, something older, faster, and far more dangerous than anything they had faced in centuries, and it was human. The night side of the mining world Eros 4 was calm. Workers were asleep in metal dormitories. Above them, the stars burned bright in the cold sky. Then, without warning, they went out. At first, people thought it was a power failure in the dome's lighting system. But when they stepped outside, they saw the truth. The sky itself was gone. Something vast was blocking it, a shape so large it covered half the horizon. No sound came from the thing above. No engines, no roar, no warning. Thin lines of red light traced across the ground, marking buildings, towers, and defensive turrets. The marks flashed once, and then came the explosions. The Dominion garrison on Eros 4 never had a chance. Their defensive guns activated too late. Their patrol craft rose into the air, but before they could fire, black streaks cut through them, and the ships disintegrated into fragments. From the shadow above, dropships descended, sleek black and almost invisible in the dark. They moved like falling blades, landing without a sound. The first human soldiers stepped out. Their armor was black with faint crimson lights, built heavy and sharp-edged. Their movements were quick, smooth, and frighteningly precise. Each soldier carried a weapon unlike anything in Dominion, designed short, brutal, and glowing faintly blue at the barrel's tip. The battle was over in minutes. Human forces swept through the mining compound, disabling turrets and cutting down armed guards. Civilians were unharmed. They were told only one thing in a voice that carried through helmet speakers: "Stay inside until we are gone." Above the planet, the Iron Dominion's sector fleet arrived 20 warships strong. They came out of hyperspace in a tight formation, weapons ready. Their admiral sent a broadcast to the unidentified forces below. "This is Dominion space. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed." There was no reply. The human dropships rose from the planet's surface, flying straight into the path of the Dominion fleet. Sensors tried to lock onto them, but readings failed. The human ships blurred, their shapes twisting in ways the Dominion's targeting systems couldn't track then. Without warning, the human warships appeared. They had been hiding in the shadow of the Supercarrier high above the system. So the moment they fired, the battle was decided. Dominion cruisers fell in seconds, their shields burning away under weapons no one had ever seen before. One blast from a human main cannon split a heavy battleship in half, as though it were made of paper. The Dominion admiral tried to retreat. He ordered a hyperspace jump. But as his ships turned, they vanished not into hyperspace, but into nothingness. On the battle screens, their icons simply blinked out. There was no explosion, no debris. Just empty space where they had been. When the last Dominion ship disappeared, the humans did not chase. They returned to the Supercarrier, silent and without boasting. On the surface of Eros 4, the freed miners emerged slowly from their shelters. Dominion banners lay in the dust, torn and burned. One of the human soldiers' stall, the armor marked by scars of old battles, moved his helmet. His face was pale, with sharp eyes and a calm expression. He looked straight into a security camera. Still recording for the Planetary News Network? This is only the beginning, he said. The message spread like wildfire. Within hours, every major news channel in the galaxy replayed the footage. Some called it an act of war. Others called it liberation. In the great library of Relos, Kaler watched the recording over and over. The soldier's tone was not angry, not triumphant, just certain. Kaler had seen that certainty before in the old human war records. It meant the humans would not stop until their goal was complete. In the Dominion capital, Lord Vexor roared in rage. They think they can destroy us piece by piece? I will crush them in one blow. He ordered the mobilization of the Grand Fleet, over 10,000 warships. It would take time to assemble, but when it was ready, he swore it would be the end. Of humanity in hidden camps across the Outer Rim, resistance fighters celebrated. For the first time in years, the Dominion had been defeated openly. The humans had done what no one else dared, and yet no one knew where the humans would strike. Next, their fleets vanished from sensors. Their soldiers disappeared as suddenly as they appeared. The only sign they left behind was silence and the fear that silence carried. That night, in dozens of worlds under Dominion control, strange events were reported. Patrols went missing. Communication towers failed. Armories exploded without warning. The pattern was the same everywhere, quick, precise. And without witnesses, the galaxy began to understand. This was not an invasion. This was the beginning of a hunt. The council chamber on the neutral world of Alros was tense. Round a long oval table, leaders from 12 different systems argued in raised voices. Outside, rain poured against tall glass windows. The sound, mixing with the low hum of security drones, "They will come for all of us," barked Chancellor Vorth of the Trade Union. "It is only a matter of time. We must speak to the humans now, before they decide our fate." Lord Malvek of the Iron Dominion's border states slammed a clawed hand down. "Speak to them, fools. We must prepare our fleets. The Dominion is assembling its Grand Fleet, and we will crush these ghosts before they spread further." An older, calmer voice rose from the end of the table. It belonged to Elder Rachin, a quiet representative from a small free colony. "You are making the same mistake the galaxy made 2 centuries ago," he said. "You think you can win against them? You cannot. I have seen what they are capable of, and now I have received something." The room fell silent. Turned to him. Rachin reached into his cloak and pulled out a small crystal black, smooth and faintly warm to the touch. "This arrived yesterday. No ship was seen, no signal detected, but when I touched it," he pressed the crystal onto the table's surface. Instantly it lit up, projecting a holographic map of Dominion space. At first, leaders only saw red markers, fortresses, fleets, key command centers. Then, blue markers began to appear. Dozens at first, then hundreds. The blue markers glowed brighter and brighter, pulsing in rhythm. "They have chosen their targets," Rachin said quietly. "They know exactly where to strike. They have warned me of something else, that the Dominion will fall faster than we can imagine. They call it the silence." Some in the room were afraid. Others were tempted. A few exchanged quick glances. Deals were already forming in their minds. Hours later, when the meeting ended, the leaders left in groups. Some would secretly reach out to the humans. Others would report everything to the Dominion, hoping for rewards. Far away in Dominion space, Lord Vexor received news of these whispers. His fury was cold this time, not loud. So, the humans think they can buy loyalty. Let them try. I will root out their spies. He called for his assassins, sending them to hunt anyone suspected of human contact. In the great library of Relas, Kaler watched the galaxy shift in real time. Old alliances cracked, and new ones formed in shadow. The humans had not made open promises or offered riches, yet worlds were already turning toward them. It was not greed. It was survival. Meanwhile, the supercarrier remained still. On its surface, hangar doors opened and closed in perfect rhythm. Entire wings of ships disappeared into hyperspace without even a flicker on the sensors of watching fleets in a hidden asteroid base. Jara and her rebel fighters received their own black crystal. The hologram it projected showed their plan at hand. A countdown clock. It had no words, no explanation. Only numbers, slowly ticking down. What happens when it reaches 0? One of her fighters asked. Jara stared at the blue glow on the wall. Either we're free or we're dead. 2 days later, a strange event shook the galaxy's confidence. A Dominion fleet sent to reinforce its outer rim defenses simply vanished. All 10 ships left hyperspace at the same coordinates. None arrived. No wreckage, no distress calls only. Silence. Rumors spread quickly. Some said the humans had new weapons that could erase ships without firing a shot. Others claimed the humans could open a hole in space itself, swallowing fleets whole in the capital of the free colonies. President Laren spoke privately with her advisors. If we join the humans now, we risk everything. If we don't, may not live to regret it. One of her aides slid a small data slate across the table. On it was a single message, in human text. You will be protected, but you must decide now. Laren closed her eyes. She could feel the weight of history pressing on her. The humans were forcing the galaxy into a choice, and the clock was ticking back in the Dominion's war room. A courier arrived breathless, delivering a small, unmarked package to Lord Vexor. Inside was a thin piece of metal with etched human writing. It was short, only 5 words long. Surrender, or be made silent. Vexor crushed the metal in his fist, his eyes burning. Tell the fleet to prepare. If they want silence, we will give them the roar of war. But even as he spoke, deep in the black between the stars, the human fleet was already moving into position. And somewhere, in a place no Dominion sensor could find, the voice of the supercarrier's AI whispered into the void. Phase 2 begins. It began with a flicker in the sky. On the edge of Dominion space, countless civilian eyes turned upward.
At first,
the stars shimmered like heat rising from the desert. Then the shimmer grew, stretching across the horizon until the sky itself rippled, and then they came. The Dominion Grand Fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. 10,000 warships, each one a fortress of metal and firepower. Rows of destroyers and cruisers moved like a wall of steel. Heavy battleships drifted behind them, their guns already glowing with power. At the center, the flagship Iron Wrath, a vessel so large that smaller ships could land on its hull. Lord Vexor stood on its bridge, claws gripping the railing as his eyes burned with anticipation. Find them. Today, we end this human myth forever. But the humans didn't appear immediately. For minutes, the Dominion sensors searched empty space. The fleet spread out, scanning the shadows. And then the lights went out, not on the ships, but in the stars themselves. Whole sections of the sky went black, as if giant hands had torn pieces of the universe away. In the blackness, shapes moved. The human fleet arrived without sound, without flash. Their warships slid from the darkness like predators breaking from cover. Each one was black, sharp-edged, and moving with a grace no Dominion ship could match. And behind them, looming like a mountain, the Supercarrier opened fire. Roared. The void exploded. Beams of energy, torpedoes, and kinetic slugs lit up space. The Dominion's firepower was overwhelming enough to shatter moons. But the humans didn't take the hits. They moved. They flowed through the attack, shifting in and out of existence as if space itself bent around them. When the humans fired back, it was different. Their weapons didn't roar. They whispered. Thin, bright lances of light struck Dominion ships, and those ships simply broke apart. Hulls tore like paper. Shields collapsed instantly. A single human dreadnought cut through an entire line of destroyers, its shots placed with surgical precision. Each one was a kill. From the Supercarrier's sides, swarms of smaller craft poured out fast, silent attack ships. They darted between the Dominion giants, planting charges, disabling engines, ripping through weak points the enemy didn't even know they had. On the bridge of the Iron Wrath, an officer screamed, "Our flanks are gone. We've lost 3 lines." "Hold formation," Vexer bellowed, but his voice was already drowned by the chaos. The humans were inside the formation now, weaving between ships, striking from impossible angles. And then the Dominion's worst fear happened. The Supercarrier's main cannon fired. There was no sound. No bright explosion. Only a ripple in space, as if reality itself had been pushed aside. The nearest Dominion battleship vanished instantly, leaving only a fading outline where it had been. One by one, human weapons tore open the Dominion fleet. In less than an hour, half the Grand Fleet was gone. Ships didn't explode. They simply ceased to exist, erased with a precision that felt almost merciful. On the Dominion's capital world, the battle streamed live. Billions watched as their greatest fleet was reduced to wreckage and silence. The propaganda channels could not spin what everyone could see with their own eyes. The humans were winning. They were not even breaking a sweat. In the great library of Kalar sat, frozen in front of a hollow screen. The battle was exactly like the recordings from 2 centuries ago. Calm, controlled, devastating. The humans did not waste a single shot. By the second hour, Vexer's voice was raw from shouting, "All ships to the flagship. Defend the core." But his own officers were already looking at escape routes. The humans were closing in. And then the moment came. The Supercarrier turned its massive hull directly toward the Iron Wrath. Every sensor lit up with alarms. A pulse of light began to build along the carrier's forward section, so bright it painted the Dominion ships in pale white. Vexer's last order was barely heard over the sirens. Fire everything the cannon fired. The flagship split down. The middle, its pieces drifting apart in perfect silence. The human fleet moved on without pause, leaving the remains to burn in the void. By the third hour, it was over. What remained of the Grand Fleet scattered in all directions? Some ships surrendered immediately. Others fled, abandoning their posts forever. The humans did not chase. Instead, their fleet formed up around the Supercarrier, and together they moved toward the Dominion's capital world. On the planets below, people stared at the dark sky, watching the black shapes grow larger. The battle was done. The real war was about to begin. The Dominion capital had never known fear. For centuries, its sky had only been filled with the proud silhouettes of their own ships. The people below believed their empire unshakable, their rulers untouchable. But that day, the sky turned black. Shadows grew across the horizon as the human fleet descended. The Supercarrier moved slowly, like a mountain drifting down from the stars, its surface covered in glowing lines that pulsed with an alien rhythm. Behind it, hundreds of human warships formed a perfect circle-and unbroken wall around the planet. Every communication channel screamed with warnings. Civilians ran through the streets. Soldiers manned the planetary defense batteries. The Dominion Council gathered in the Hall of Thrones, their voices loud. Their fear louder. "They won't fire on civilians," one counselor argued, his voice trembling. "It's not their way. They erased the Grand Fleet in ours," another spat. "Do you think they care about our way?" In the deep bunkers beneath the Capitol, Supreme Chancellor Zyran stood before a massive screen showing the human fleet. His claws tapped against the table as he spoke to his advisors. If they want to fight, they will bleed for it. Ready all defenses. Lock the city's shield grid. The orders went out. Planetary shields rose, shimmering domes of energy covering key cities. Missile silos opened across the deserts. Giant rail cannons prepared to fire. Then, without warning, every screen, every radio, every device on the planet went black, and a face appeared. Human, his expression was calm. His voice was quiet, but it carried through every speaker like a whisper in the ear. We are not here to conquer. We are not here to rule. We came because someone called for help. His eyes were cold, but we saw what you did to them. We saw the fire, the chains, the silence, and now you will answer for it. The message ended. A second later, the first attack came not from space, but from the ground. Across the Capitol, Dominion weapons went dead. Missile systems refused to fire. Cannons froze in place. Entire shield grids flickered and failed as if someone had simply switched them off. The humans hadn't even landed. But the Dominions. Defenses were falling apart. In the skies, black shapes streaked downward dropships, sleek and silent. They didn't roar like Dominion craft. They whispered, cutting through the air without leaving a trail. Within seconds, they were above the city. And metal doors opened. The first human troops dropped. They hit the streets running. Their armor black and smooth, their movements so fast. It was hard to track them. Dominion soldiers fired, but their shots bent away, missing entirely. Humans returned fire with precise bursts, dropping enemies without hesitation. On the balcony of the Hall of Thrones, Chancellor Zyron watched in disbelief as his elite guards fell in seconds. How? How are they doing this? He muttered. One of his generals answered in a broken voice. They're not fighting to win, Chancellor. They're fighting to finish it. The humans advanced without pause. They moved through the city like a tide, disabling weapons, locking down gates, cutting off escape routes. They didn't destroy buildings. They didn't harm civilians. But every Dominion soldier in their way went down. Soon they reached the Hall of THROs. The great doors, reinforced with layers of armored steel, slid open as if they weren't even locked. Humans stepped inside, weapons ready. The counselors backed away in fear. Zaren stood at the center, his hands clenched, his voice shaking but loud. This is Dominion territory. You have no right. The human leader stepped forward.
The same
Man from the message, his eyes locked on Zirin. You lost the right, he said, when you answered a call for mercy with blood. For a long moment no one moved. Outside the sound of battle faded. The city was silent. Zyron's voice cracked. If you kill me, you will make an enemy of every Dominion world. The human's expression didn't change. We already have. The silence was heavy. The Dominion's leaders looked at each other. Realizing the truth, they had already lost. The Grand Fleet was gone. Their weapons were useless. Their cities were surrounded. The human leader spoke again, his voice low, but carrying through the hall. This ends now. People you oppressed will be freed. Your fleets will stand down. Your rule is over. And then, in a move that shocked everyone, he turned away. The humans didn't execute the council. They didn't take trophies. They left. Dropships lifted off, returning to the Supercarrier. In the streets, human troops disappeared as quickly as they had arrived. From space, the Dominion capital looked almost untouched except for the fact that every military installation was now dark, every weapon disabled, and every communication line under human control. In orbit, the Supercarrier slowly turned away from the planet. But the message was clear to every world watching. The humans could arrive anywhere, at any time, and no force could stop them. The galaxy held its breath, because if this was what humanity did when answering a single plea for help, no one wanted to imagine what they would do in a war of their own choosing. The Dominion capital floated far behind, a silent shadow in the starfield. On the bridge of the human Supercarrier, every station was calm, every display showing green. The mission was over. The enemy had been broken without destroying their world. But no one on the bridge looked relieved, because the war was not truly over. Admiral Rains stood at the center, eyes fixed on the stars. "Open the channel," he said. A holographic map lit up in the air every Dominion world. Every fleet, every occupied colony. Red lights covered the galaxy like a spreading infection. Slowly, those red points began to blink as human code spread through the networks, disabling weapons and cutting communications across hundreds of systems. Dominion soldiers found their ships dead in space. Their commanders screamed orders that could not be carried out. And in every colony they had enslaved, the same thing happened. Doors unlocked. Chains opened, shields dropped. The oppressed stepped out into the sunlight for the first time in years. And in the sky above, human ships hung like watchful guardians. The galaxy saw it all, on neutral worlds. News channels replayed the footage of the human fleet surrounding the Dominion capital. Some called it justice. Others called it the start of something far more dangerous. The Dominion Council, now powerless, was forced to transmit a single order to every world under their control. Stand down. Do not resist. But deep within Dominion, space, in a fortress hidden inside a dying star's orbit, the true architects of the war watched in silence. These were not politicians or generals. These were the unseen rulers. It's the ones who had ordered the invasion that triggered humanity's wrath. One of them, a tall, pale figure with eyes like molten gold, spoke first. "We underestimated them." Another leaned forward. "I know we misunderstood. Them, they do not seek empire. But when provoked, they will not stop." The first figure's voice grew colder. "Then they are a danger to us all." Far away in the human fleet, Admiral Rains received a private transmission. It came from a small mining station in uncharted space. The voice on the other end was weak, frightened. "This is Station V9, unknown ships. They just appeared out of nowhere. They're not Dominion, please. Help us." The bridge fell silent. Everyone remembered how this began one small call for help that had shaken the galaxy. Rains looked out at the endless dark beyond the stars. "Set course," he ordered. "Full speed." Engines roared to life. The Supercarrier turned, its massive form blotting out the light of a nearby sun as the fleet followed. But this time, there was something different. Sensors detected strange energy readings around. Veganine, ships that didn't match any known design. And hidden among the static of the transmission, a faint second voice whispered in a language no human recognized. In the council chambers of neutral worlds, diplomats argued in panic. If the humans respond to this, they could start another war. But deep in the hearts of billions watching the human fleet, there was a different feeling: hope. The stars ahead grew brighter, one by one, as the fleet approached. The galaxy had seen what happened when humanity fought for someone else's freedom, and now everyone wondered, what would happen if they were forced to fight for their own? The Supercarrier's shadow passed over the mining station's moon, blocking out the stars. Weapons across the fleet powered up, their targeting systems locking onto the unknown ships. Around Vega-9. Admiral Rains' voice cut through the silence. "This is the human fleet. Identify yourselves now." The reply came, slow and deliberate. "We are not the Dominion. We are something far older. And you have drawn too much attention." The comms went dead. Every sensor lit up with incoming signals. Unknown ships moved in perfect formation, surrounding the station. Then in a flash, brighter than the sun, the first of them fired. The battle for Vega-9 had begun, and across the galaxy. The message was clear. Humanity's war was far from over, because out there, in the deep dark, something even worse had been waiting.